I actually learned how to train when I was in prison, and when I came home, I had to go through the halfway house and I ended up getting a job at a restaurant. But when I finally was able to leave the halfway house and I got my own apartment is when I decided that I wanted to get back into dog training. You know, the one thing I could tell you is there's so much of my life, all I did is I put crap out. And for the first time in my life, I actually put good out in the world. You know, I felt like, man, I'm a part of something that's really greater than me. My name is Jose Manuel Zambrano. Jose is the one that created word of mouth dog training. I think that my dog training was actually given to me like a gift from the Lord. When I went to prison, I was still very, I don't want to say negative, but I was still in a very dark mindset where, you know, that's who I was. You know, never once did I think that, like, even when I got arrested and I was looking all that time, never once did I was like, oh, I'm gonna go cry to the Lord now. And one reason I was never really close to the Lord was, you know, with my parents being taken from me when I was so young. So my whole life, I kind of knew the Lord existed. I just didn't think he cared about me. So one day I got down on my hands and knees and I was crying. I was in my cell and I was crying. And I got down and I asked the Lord if he would be I asked Jesus to be my Lord and Savior, if he would forgive me of my sins. On that conversation with him, I told him I would follow him in any path that he had for me. No questions asked. I just didn't want to be who I used to be. I would say, I think when I was down on my knees that day, the Lord actually touched me and he gave me the gift with the dogs. I've never had a dog. I'd been in the same prison for 7 years. 2 weeks later, I was transferred prisons. It took about a week to get there. It was so nice to just be in a car and see a tree. And then when I was at that prison, one of my good friends that I was locked up with, the other one, he's like, hey, I'm in this dog program. It's really cool. You should check it out. I think you'd like it. And at the time I was like, nah, I don't know. And then I kind of went back to my cell and I thought about it. I was like, you know what? I should just apply for it. What's the worst thing that could happen? The next day they were doing interviews. I went in. She asked me if I ever had a dog before. I was like, no. She asked me, you know, a lot of questions. I just told her I was a quick learner. I was interested in it. I didn't think I got the job. I left, and next day I was #1 on the list, and 2 days later I was in the dog program. So in prison, there's multiple dog programs in prison. This one in particular, we actually took the dogs in and boarded them with us. They were true boardings from the streets. You know, you would pay a certain amount of money, you'd give your dog to the prison, they'd have your dog for 28 days, and then we'd send it home trained. In our cells, our rooms were a little different. The beds were side by side. They weren't like bunk style. So they lifted our beds up higher and the kennels actually went underneath our bed. And that's where the dogs, they lived actually physically underneath us. We'd board and train them for 28 days, teach them their basic obedience. As I was in there, I started out as a beginner dog trainer. What that entails is about 7 tests, about asking you different stuff and, you know, about how to do the dogs, what to do with them, how to start working on them. And then I went to the intermediate training. This is a little more intense. This is starting to get in behavioral modification. You know, you're starting to learn more, you're starting to do more. Your dog should be starting to turn out by now. So I finally got my intermediate certification. And then as time went on, I ended up getting my master certification. To be a master, you're probably gonna at least train 24 dogs for 28-day stays. You're gonna be definitely behavioral modification. You're gonna have to write theses on what happens, what you should do, all that type of stuff that makes you a master certified dog trainer. And even though this program, you know, is offered in prison, I don't believe there's too many programs even out here that would give you the type of training. I had 2,100 logged hours. The reason why the dogs board in my home is because the only way I could share that true bond that I get with them is by them living with me. And I can't tell you how much them, you know, if they're crying at night, if they poop their kennels, if anything happens, you know, because believe me, a lot of things happen. I want to be able to hear them. I want to be able to stop the problem. I want to be by them. I feel like, yeah, you could drop your dog off at a facility, but unless you're physically with them all the time, I just don't feel like they're gonna get it. Like, we want the dogs to learn about the home life. We want them to learn boundaries inside. We want them to learn how to play with the other dogs outside without chewing on their faces and chewing on their necks and doing all those things. Like, we're gonna teach them how to be obedient. I truly believe what sets us apart is that our dogs live with us. We bring them in like they're a family member, and we send them home a better family member. We have a huge social media platform. We have an Instagram, a TikTok, a YouTube channel, Facebook. You can always look at my website, wordofmouthdogtraining.com. You could call me on the phone, 720-436-5730. We are like an open book. One thing I would tell you that I truly believe why I take this path. For one, I love the change in the dogs. I can't tell you how much I love to see them be better, to see them, their potential, how smart they are, what they could be. I love seeing the families connect with them, and I love seeing their smiles, and I love seeing how happy they are when they get their dog back. It was like the busier I got and the more I pushed myself towards the dogs, it was like the more my life just, I don't know, like happier. My kids work for me. My family works for me. Multiple people, I have employees, and I don't know, it was like just this explosion of just, and it was like, all I can explain is it was like a small little ball, and it just started rolling, and then it just got even busier. And each the while, we're changing people's lives, we're helping people, and it's just amazing to see the change and be in the community. And actually, if you run into word of mouth, you've actually ran into the Word of Mouth dog family.